Hello, ladies. Jupiter at Night is filmed before a live internet audience. Swan dive!
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Jupiter at Night. My name is Chris.
My name is Jeremy.
Now,
I've got a fun story to tell tonight. This is the first one I've had in a while, so I'm excited.
Jeremy, go ahead and share your story with us.
Okay, and this is actually the inspiration for the entire episode, and we will tell you how later on.
Oh, you know, before we get into that, I want to mention to people, too, we know you can't watch this show every single night live, so there is
Who wants to do this every night?
Right? That'd be crazy to do the same thing every single night. You'd have to be a wacko. Anyways, if you'd like to catch every single episode of Jupiter at Night on your own terms, head over to jupiterbroadcasting.com, and over on the right-hand side of the site, you'll find the RSS feeds. All right,
if you're watching this on the site, they're right down there.
I wanted to get that out there before I forgot, because it was like one of those thought bubbles that was in my brain.
Tell me about rattling around, could have fallen out at any second.
Tell me about your story today, because I had the pleasure of monitoring from the sidelines.
I know. I kept bitching at you in chat. I had the pleasure of spending several hours today, probably close to 4 hours, pulling old data off of old hard drives, a pile of hard drives. There are a total of 9 hard drives.
That's hardcore.
That I had to pull this stuff off. Some were so old that their max capacity was only like 10 gigabytes. But there was good stuff on there that I had to get.
Whoa.
It was mostly my family's junk. But the reason I spent the whole day today doing it was because I got this really awesome trinket from ThinkGeek. I ordered this last week, and it finally came in. It's a brand new item that they've got.
Yeah, it's this USB to SATA combo kit where you can, what's cool too is it's not just, which is perfect for a guy like you with older machines, because it's not just SATA, it also is IDE.
And it's all just USB compatible.
And does it supply power over the USB?
There's also a power supply, and the power supply has a switch on it. I found that.
Oh, so you could leave it always plugged in if you wanted to use it as an external drive.
Yeah.
And then these black squares next to
you can wrap
casings?
an old drive in these polyurethane cases, so just use them as an external. It's a really great little
That is a good way to get old stuff off.
But God, it's so frustrating to spend so much of my life grabbing this old data, which if we just thought ahead, we could have pulled and kept and used. I saved a total of like 30 gigabytes of old photos and tax documents and old resumes.
You're a little lucky the drive's probably spun up if they're that old.
Yep.
Were you a little nervous about that?
I was. Every single time I plugged one in, I was like, please work, please work.
Yeah. It's like I have and I'm almost positive they don't work anymore, but I have a lot of my original software that I bought for my first computer on floppies. I still have those floppies. I don't have a floppy drive anymore to see if they work.
Well, this is kind of what led me down this path to putting these stories together that we've got for you guys tonight. Is basically so much of our lives are spent on, stored in these temporary medias, which I mean, they feel permanent right now, but they really are in the long run temporary.
It speaks to a larger issue, and that larger issue is that there is just so much data now in our lives on a daily basis, even that it's not just a matter of storing it, but processing it correctly and making the correct decisions, remembering things.
30 gigabytes of information just from my family. This was not like government secrets or anything like that. This was family photos and crap.
Yeah.
I mean, 10 years ago, 30 gigabytes of storage was unheard of. And now my family's filled it up with their junk.
I know. I know. And so similarly, and I know a lot of us out there have the same problem.
Yeah.
And I do, with my email, my inboxes. So I actually, in a little bit in this episode, I have a few tips to help you kind of deal with personally with information overload that I've sort of started adopting myself that I'll share with you guys. But, if you look at this situation where there's so much going on every single day for us to keep track of, what if you look at it in the context of when it's the U.S. government, maybe even the NSA, and it's their job to protect the citizen. And when they have information overload, then we have a real serious problem. And I guess some stories have come out recently that's exactly what's happened. And there's been a great video over at thewashingtonpost.com. And we're going to go ahead and play that for you now because of it really sums up the introduction of this whole problem.
Top secret America. We're all aware that there are 3 branches of government in the United States. But in response to 9/11, a 4th branch has emerged. It is protected from public scrutiny by extraordinary secrecy. Top secret America.
This is a closed community, and since 9/11, it's become even more so.
The money spigot was just opened after 9/11, and nobody dared say, I don't think we should be spending that much.
It has become so big, and the lines of responsibility are so blurred that even our nation's leaders don't have a handle on it. Where is it? It's being built from coast to coast, hidden within some of America's most familiar cities and neighborhoods. In Colorado, in Nebraska, in Texas, in Florida, in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. Top Secret America includes hundreds of federal departments and agencies operating out of 1,300 facilities around this country. They contract the services of nearly 2,000 companies. In all, more people than live in our nation's capital have top secret security clearance.
It's, again, the size, the lack of transparency, and the cost. And if we don't get it right, the consequences are gigantic.
So that was a great video that the Washington Post put together. So I wanted to play that right here on the show.
That video is part of their whole project that they've just launched. It's called Explore Top Secret America.
It's a huge investigation that they've undergone. I mean, fantastic, real journalism. I mean, I'm not an expert on this stuff, but from what I've seen, I'm just blown away.
The thing that blows me away is the fact, we've always heard, just as a stereotypical complaint, oh, the government bureaucracy is so bloated. We don't, the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. But this
actually literally seems to be the case.
Yeah, I mean, it
Things
goes
are wound up and around
the details.
They wind it up around in secrecy so that one agency can't talk to the other. I mean, it'd be like us not able to, before the show, speak because of some sort of secret barrier between us.
Right.
That's totally artificial.
But we all had access to the same information. Which,
right, but we could just draw our own conclusions.
Right.
And then they go off and they have actionable items on those conclusions that they draw that the other set of people might have different actionable conclusions that might conflict with each other. That's a huge issue.
This article actually talks about an example where an Army director ended up getting information after they had already followed up on that information, which turned out that their whole operation was incorrect. I mean, it was a case where they weren't supposed to be doing the research. Somebody else was. But because of this bureaucratic nightmare, the information they required didn't get to them in time, and they ended up making some bad decisions.
That's too bad.
At a government military level. I mean, this is serious stuff.
Yeah. And so the situation is that they have, since 9/11, they have just really upped the intelligence gathering capacity, and they have just an incredible stream of data. We don't actually know the numbers of everything that they monitor, but in terms of phone calls, emails, faxes, other types of those general communications, we know that there's at least 1.7 billion types of those communications that don't even get logged.
Those are their backlog on a daily basis.
Yeah. Those now, you might say, boy, I hope my call is in one of those. Or maybe you have the opinion that that's really scary. Maybe one of those calls was, Osama bin Laden calling his buddy to say, hey, I'm hanging out over here.
But it's just sitting in a backlog.
Yeah.
Because there's just too much information.
Well, and think about the money, the cost, and the infrastructure that all had to be implemented in order to get that data. And then we built all this up. We spent all this time, all this money, all these resources to get all this information. We finally get it. And now we don't know what to do with it because we didn't have a complete solution.
Yeah.
And how do you build a system that can process that much information? Is that even something computers today are capable of?
I don't think... I honestly think that after reading this article and after looking into some of the other articles that are out there, we've got a few linked in our show notes, I think it's too big. I think that we could probably get the job done with a smaller number of agencies that will run more efficiently. One of the big things is they don't have enough oversight over all of these companies. Many millions of reports are routinely just tossed aside because... hey, this came from a contractor that hasn't given us anything good, so why do we want to look what they're giving us today?
Did you see the numbers of the amount of contractors they have? 250,000 contractors have top secret clearance.
A total of, 850,000 people in the U.S. have top secret security clearance.
And there's some agencies, areas of these agencies that are completely running themselves because they don't have to report to a superior because what they're working on, their superior is not allowed to have that information. So they just have to say, the budget is for this, sign here, please.
Yeah.
It's to protect us.
Because there's not sufficient oversight, and the oversight that is in place is so overtaxed.
Right.
They had a quote from a guy that they couldn't release his information about where it came from, but he's one of the oversight dudes, and he said that he already has so much information that he will not be capable of being briefed on that information before the end of his lifetime.
Right.
And more information is coming in on a daily basis.
I know. And so... could you imagine? Think about this. This just popped in my head. But imagine the storage of phone. I mean, phone is voice, right?
Yeah.
Emails have attachments. The storage, the facilities for this must be amazing. Didn't we see something like it was? There was a note in here about they have 17 billion square feet total of office space
that's been built since 9/11,
just in the D.C. area.
Yeah. Just in the greater DC metro area.
That was, I said, 17 billion square feet. So a lot of that's probably server infrastructure, which is pretty wild.
Yeah.
Now, the flip side of this coin here is that there is also some that say there needs to be a fair amount of overlap between these different agencies, because if one misses something, you need to have gap protection from the other.
Yes, but at the same time, if they're both investigating the same thing, you're supposed to be able to rely on one to give you accurate information.
Honestly, I don't know why they don't just use Google and Twitter.
That's what I use.
Yeah,
and I know everybody's secrets.
And Facebook. Really, if you want to get the secrets, you got to get on Facebook.
Yep.
That's what I'm told. Interesting story. A fantastic bit of journalism here by the Washington Post.
I do want to point out that the head of the CIA was quoted in one of these articles as basically saying that the growth in the intelligence industry cannot be sustained. He knows it's coming to an end. The government actually sent out a response to this Washington Post. It's actually a pretty interesting read. And again, linked in our show notes. There's a nice little summary article at the bottom of this that includes that. So check it out. Worth a read.
Now, if you're dealing with information overload on yourself, maybe you find that when you are working on something, you're distracted by shiny things on the internet frequently. I've got a couple of different ways.
Aren't we shiny things on the internet?
Yes, yes. But see, if you do it right, then you have time for shiny. Because you got to get shiny in your life. If you don't have shiny in your life, then you get sad, and then, you know, what's the whole point of the internet.
Shiny defeats the sad.
But my tips, just through the years that I've discovered, is whatever you're using to manage your life. Maybe it's just one aspect, like your calendaring, maybe it's the things you need to do, stuff like that. Don't use a service that has what I call a data silo, as in it doesn't allow for syncing to something in and out. You can't back up the data, because when everything's stored in one spot, when you can't get to that one spot that one time, you're not going to go in there to check off the task or add the task. And as soon as you stop
you would
using
say that with your so prevalent use of Dropbox and Google Docs and stuff like that.
But that's the beauty of them, because Dropbox and Google Docs is available on any machine that I'm at.
Oh, okay. So you're saying nothing that's isolated.
Right. Like, a great example is if you're a Windows user, you might have seen the program Microsoft OneNote. Now, there's some early synchronization options in there, and it is an amazing note-taking application. Now, I'm not giving credit to Microsoft here. They bought the product. But it is a very good product, except for it is...
good purchase.
It is a total... I mean, it's like OCR, it does voice recognition, all this kind of stuff, but it is totally a data silo. You can do awesome notebooks with embedded media and all that kind of stuff, but it's always on your desktop.
And it's entirely isolated from anything else.
So no data silos. That's a big thing for me. Also, if you sign up for a service to help, like a great example that I have here is Remember the Milk, be sure that it can integrate with your existing day-to-day workflow. For example, have you ever used Remember the Milk?
No.
It's a really simple to-do task manager site. But it's got some really nice features, and it does have some syncing. But the problem is, I don't go to rememberthemilk.com every day.
Right.
I go to Gmail, I go to Google Calendar, things like that. So I needed something that tied in with that area, that my workflow, my existing
that you're
workflow.
Already there, yeah.
And I had a fantastic Android app that synced with Remember the Milk.
Oh.
But, you know, on my phone and on a website are just not enough. I need it everywhere. So be sure, you sometimes will have to sacrifice quality. Like, I really like Remember the Milk. It's a better task manager than Google Tasks, but I've sacrificed the overall quality for the core functionality that I need.
And for the big access to it everywhere and everything like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The access to it from any device or anywhere. Two quick last notes I'll give you is try to focus on 2 or 3 major tasks for the day. Those are your primary things. Anything else that falls underneath that, maybe even 4 tasks, anything that falls underneath that, add it to a do later bin. Now, I don't mean don't do it that day. I just mean get to a good stopping point on your task.
This is something that I always do, and my do later bin is called Post-it notes. And right now, I have 12 Post-it notes. On the top of my... Most of them are like blog ideas or ideas for future shows or things I need to do for upcoming events. But
I've been using Google Docs more and more for that kind of stuff. I noticed you have too. But one service that's neat, this is specifically...
Well, sometimes Post-it notes are too small.
That's...
I'll start writing and then... Nope.
Sometimes I even email myself. A service that's really neat, I think it's totally free too, and this is directly to help with those shiny things you find online. It is called Read It Later, and you might be familiar with something like Instapaper or something like that. Read It Later is a browser extension that when you're browsing the web, you don't have to use a bookmark it too. You're browsing the web, you're like, oh man, I really want to follow up on this, but I'm focusing on one of my top 3 to 4 tasks for this day. You click a button, it strips out all the text and archives it off, sort of like almost like a Google Reader style where you go back to it later on and you can read all of the things that you found.
Yeah, I've been using Google Reader like that, but this might be like a supplement to that then.
What's nice about this is it syncs with Android app, BlackBerry
app,
so if I had
a mobile that I wanted to like I'll read that while I'm doing something else.
While you're pooping. And then when you get back to your computer, it's marked as read.
All right.
And it's a nice way to say, boy, this is something I want to follow up on, but I really do need to stay focused, so I'm going to send it to that. So those are kind of my tips, and I've got a few more in the show notes, so head over to Jupiter Broadcasting.
There's another one that I'll try to add to the show notes if I don't forget. This just reminded me of it. There's a lot of task manager apps have started getting a lot of press recently where you can like set up sandboxes that restrict you to what you're working on. This is mostly for like college students that have to get a paper done.
Right.
And if they go try to like click on their browser to go to Facebook, it goes, you can't do that.
And then we talked about the Epic Win iPhone app that's coming out soon. That's like lets you your task manager. That's a game. Check out.
That's positive reinforcement. I like that more because it gives you points for doing things correctly.
Exactly. And we did a Jupiter Nite on that, so check that out.
Yeah.
Now, this whole problem of getting a ton of information, indexing it, sorting through all of it, isn't unique to us as people, isn't unique to even the problem of the U.S. government. It's unique in all aspects. One of them is one of these, it's not unspoken, but it's not spoken about enough. And there's a lot of sites out there that track Alexia rankings, compare rankings, these things where people will track your blog and your website and say, we estimate they're getting X amount of traffic.
Your podcast.
Your podcast, exactly. And I think everybody knows if you run a website and you look at one of these services, they're generally either off or way off.
Yeah.
And
in a best case scenario, they're wrong.
Yeah. In a best case scenario, they're wrong, and in a likely case scenario, they're really wrong.
I got to totally hand it to Reddit for posting this incredible article. The article itself is really plain English, down to earth.
Super
it just
simple.
Presents the problem. These are the things that are wrong.
Also, super ballsy move to post their actual Google Analytics stats.
Yeah.
They get incredible traffic.
Man, if we got those visits.
Yeah.
Boy. Remember that flying car from a few episodes back? That'd be mine.
So this is interesting. So they say that, you look at our numbers here, which are strong. These numbers, these Google Analytic numbers, come from actual JavaScript on our website that the browser executes and pings the Google Analytics service. So every single visitor that doesn't have that blocked is representative.
I also got to give them a quick shout out for this. Right in the blog post, they tell you how to disable that if you don't like it.
Yeah. Does that freak you out a little bit? Click here. That's also really cool.
Yeah.
I'm digging Reddit. I'm a Reddit noob, but this stuff here is impressive.
Is it Reddit or Reddit?
I think it might be Reddit.
All right.
Yeah.
Then I'm right. Yeah. Keep saying it wrong.
So then they showed their traffic numbers compared to the other services, and in the case of Compete, they drastically underestimated.
Reddit's unique visitor count from their Google Analytics is right around 8 million in the last 30 days, is what they're saying.
And
Compete.com's has it listed under 1 million in the last 30 days.
Under 950,000 even.
Yeah.
And Quantcast here, which is Quantcast is one of these that's considered to be the one that advertisers want for certified metrics that they'll pay you. So the reason why these numbers are important is because these services are a lot of times what sponsors and advertisers use. Any
sponsor out there is usually looking to see how much they're paying per set of eyes that they're buying, basically.
And they want third-party authoritative numbers.
Right.
Not your Google Analytics number that comes directly from each visitor, but authoritative numbers that come from a whole mysterious location. Yeah. So they're all wrong.
They're all way wrong. Now, I also want to point out, though, that according to one of the comments on this blog post, Reddit's numbers are probably a bit on the high side because of the way that really what it comes down to is how do you define unique visitor?
Yeah.
Because you can't actually say, well, this is Joe. Because if Joe's got a son that also goes to the same websites and uses the same computer, you can't tell Joe from Bob.
Right. Or it's even a bigger problem when you have a 500-person company and they all come from behind one firewall.
Exactly.
So the real meat, though, the surprising treat for this Reddit blog article is the comment section.
Yeah.
I don't usually say, I don't think I've ever said on a Jupiter Broadcasting show, go look at our show notes and read the comments.
Read the comments.
But their comments on this Reddit article that we'll link to are like there's the Penny Arcade webmaster. He talks in there about how their numbers are also way off.
The project manager from Google's double-click ad planner project, which actually he gives you some really great tips if you're a Google Ads user on how to get your numbers basically more accurate and get them certified so that you don't have to use a third-party system like these others.
The comments talk about if you care, and we'll just make this quick because we know this only applies to a small percentage of you, but if you care, there is actually a way to publish your Google Analytics number into a service which is considered a validated third-party authority service. So that is definitely something, if you're a webmaster who's trying to look at getting more revenue for your website, go to our show notes, check that out.
The reason this whole thing kind of blows my mind is because these third-party systems are basically running the revenue of people that that are trying to use the internet and use press outlets, and you know, they're trying to make their own business as an internet business of some sort. But they have to rely on these third-party businesses.
And one of the commenters in that Reddit article is like, yeah, I work for one of these companies, and if you knew actually how we got our numbers, you wouldn't be bothering with our website.
Yeah. It's ridiculous that they have such a stranglehold on an industry that they're not actually a part of. When are we going to be able to get some actual accurate numbers? And I know that it's more important to us.
It is way more,
members of the internet media, but you know, it just comes back to information. I guess not overload in this case.
Yeah.
Kind of information underload.
It's how to process it correctly. All right, well, let's move on to something fun, right?
Okay.
So Comic-Con kicks off tonight. Is it technically kicking off tomorrow, but previews tonight?
It technically kicks off tomorrow.
Okay.
July 22nd through 25th.
But we've seen a preview. This just came out today. Possible spoiler alert. I already showed it, so you already saw it. But we've seen the posters for Thor and Captain America.
I don't know if these are really posters. There's some sort of concept art or something.
But they're probably going to be hopefully representative of what the characters will somewhat look like. And Thor has some freaking wicked horns on him.
No, that's Loki. That's his brother Loki.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is Thor.
Oh, right, the hammer. Duh, of course.
And the cape.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess they both got capes.
But, I mean...
I'm really looking forward to both of these so much. I'm hoping Marvel is going to be hosting a press release, I think. A press conference, I think tomorrow, over one of the next few days. Anyway, Comic-Con is a big deal.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a geek. We kind of are. So you're probably going to hear us talking about at least one story a day for the next
We'll try to
couple
filter
days.
out the really best, the good stuff. So we're not just watering it down with all the crap Comic-Con news that's just going to fart out everywhere.
But you're probably watching a lot of the biggest stories as well. So maybe we'll kind of weed through the... Oh, and this was also said.
Oh, a great opportunity, just to remind people, head over to bit.ly/Chris Fisher or find me on Buzz. We'll probably be posting in our Buzz feeds the Comic-Con stories. And if there's one you like more than the other, your comments in my Buzz feed sort of drive what stories make it on the show.
Especially if you're at Comic-Con and like if we post something and you're like, dude, I cornered this guy in the men's room and he totally said this.
Epic. Even if it's not real, that sounds pretty epic. Okay. All right.
Don't corner people in the men's room. That's awkward.
Jupiter Nite does not recommend you corner men in the men's room.
No.
Hopefully it's men in the men's room and not women in the men's room. If it is, maybe you should corner them and find out what's going on. Okay, everyone. Well, that wraps up this episode of Jupiter at Night. We'll be back tomorrow night. And remember about those RSS feeds if you want to get us every single day.
Catch them real easy that way.
Yep, there you have it. Okay, everyone. Well, thanks so much for watching this episode of Jupiter at Night.